Right, a few minutes late. My apologies to everyone. Let me get my life together. What's up, everybody? Could I get a comment in the chat if anyone's here? Okay, let's do our intros. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Um, so I wanted to kind of continue some of what I was saying, maybe a week ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, about neoliberals' effect on how we view the world, how black women in particular may be viewing the world. Um, I wanted to give us some quotes to think about. It's just a couple. There's so many, but I just have a couple. Um, just give us something to think about. And a lot of this has been inspired by me listening to some of your divestors, listening to some of your colorist queens, listening to some of the divester and swirler adjacent women, and listening to how they evaluate men, right, and speak about men. And it's actually pretty frightening, actually, um, to hear black women speak this way, because you can tell they haven't really questioned the overall environment and landscape, the economic and social structure. They're just like, okay, whatever the dominant ideology is, that's what I'm going with, right? Regardless if that particular ideology is actually productive or fruitful or anything like that, right? So let's talk about it. All right. So the definition of neoliberal. Let's give the definition first, and then we can go into things later. Neoliberal, favoring policies that promote free market capitalism, deregulation, and reduction in government spending. Right. So I've defined this word a couple times, and I want us to focus on deregulation, reduction in government spending. And what you just, when you hear that, just think about, like, there are no structures anymore. So, when you listen to some of the elders, they'll tell you some of the courting and dating process back in the day, where, a woman is probably young and still young, so she's still living with her parents, and no matter how you meet her, you have to meet the parents. You knock on the door, dad threatens your life, or one of her older male siblings, or at least somebody important, some important man in her life threatens you and says, hey, you better protect her, you better take care of her, blah, blah, blah. Just think of, I think the best modern iteration that we've seen of this is Bad Boys 2, right? When what's his name walks up to the door, Martin threatens him, Will threatens him, that type of situation, right? That's kind of a regulated market. You as a young man or a man meet a woman's father, uncle, older brother, somebody important, important male cousin that kind of sets boundaries. He sets how this is gonna go, right? Okay. In a deregulated market, it's all freestyle. Y'all meet how y'all meet. The relationship go how it go. It doesn't go how it go. It ends how it ends, right? Now, it's interesting hearing these women oftentimes chastise men for not being men of the old school when they're not women of the old school. Once again, a deregulated market. Those women want to do what they want to do. They don't want anything to limit them, but they want you to still adhere to some old patriarchal notions of masculinity, and not even all of them. They only want you to adhere to the ones that they feel benefit them, right? So, I want us to also think of, and who I'm going to mention was the Prime Minister of Britain, I think from 1979 to 1990. Her name was Margaret Thatcher. So she was in power around the same time as Ronald Reagan. And so you have this economic model coming back in. So this is the end of Keynesianism. Milton Friedman is advising, the Chicago boys are advising, and what you get is a different way of viewing the economy that's not all about advancing people as much as possible, regulating the market so that it can it can benefit as many people as humanly possible. So maybe the profit margins aren't as great as they can be, but the losses aren't as great as they can be also, and more people get to eat. It's not it's not just funneling all of the wealth to the top with no regulation, right? So Margaret Thatcher comes in 79, and one of the quotes that she is famously known for is, there is no such thing as society. Now, when I hear, and this is why I'm careful on how I use these terms, when I hear certain people use the term Blackistan as a pejorative, when I hear certain negative terms like communita, when I hear there's no such thing, there's the black community doesn't exist, there is no black community, there is no community, I often think about this quote from Margaret Thatcher. There is no such thing as society. And I understand black men definitely, and maybe even sometimes black women that say this out of frustration. But I want them to understand what you're truly saying, because quite frankly, it's not your choice anyway. You are forced into this black community. It is a forced classification. It doesn't matter how you feel about it, right? Also, Margaret Thatcher once said, there is no such thing as public money. When I hear that, there is no such thing as public money, what I hear is there is no such thing as public good. It's all about the individual, right? So this is when you get the push for individualism, hyper individualism. Now we can see 40 plus years on what that looks like, what a push for hyper individualism looks like. And we're here now, right? When you are defined by your status in life and by the money you make, right? Right? And by your station in life. So your status, your station, the money you make, right? And this is, and when you think about how women view men, this would explain, right, why so many women, particularly women of color, are chasing after white male validation. And that's not up for debate. The sociologists are saying it, the dating experts, the people, the sociologists and demographers that are researching these things online show that race is the determining factor, right? Because white skin, white masculinity in particular, in other words, it's not men of color that are judging off of a white beauty standard, as we've been told for decades now. It is women of color that are judging off of a white concept of productivity, of status, of money. And what that does is it automatically puts white men in what white, rich, Milton Friedman, hyper-capitalist men, right? Think of Gordon Gekko, greed is good. What they have said is important on this planet. And so women of color have adopted that. And as I'm trying to convince everyone, they've adopted a neoliberal lens, or they view the world through a neoliberal lens. And that automatically puts other men of color, but primarily and particularly black men, on the bottom, right? And so now it's, how white can you be? See, when I've said things like this and I've alluded to things like this, I've gotten a lot of pushback. Well, now it's not even up for debate. You got the sociologists, PhDs in sociology, by the way, Jennifer Lundquist and Dr. Jennifer Lundquist and Dr. Chantel Buggs, right? So I'm also reminded, and by the way, once again, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Thank you everyone for being here. Super chats will be read out loud. I'm also reminded of Ronald Reagan, our neoliberal president. And these people set the pace for what was going to go on from thereafter. You haven't had a non-neoliberal leader in Britain, or prime minister in Britain, or president in the US since then, right? You haven't had one. So, and they were followed up by, well, Reagan was followed up by Bush Sr., but really think of Clinton. And then Thatcher was followed up by, and his face is right there in my mind. Some of my brothers remember who I'm sorry. He was president during George W. Bush's invasion of Iraq. Also, God, his face is in my mind right now. Anyway, but Ronald Reagan once said the most terrifying words in the English language. Excuse me, the nine most terrifying words in the English language is "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Once again, when you hear things like that and quotes like that permeate, right, the culture, what you have is um, people kind of poo-pooing government, poo-pooing concepts of community, of society, right? It's all about me, 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 me. And then not only that, your ability to show status, your ability to show opulence gets elevated. We then define ourselves by the nicest things you can buy, the nicest things you can do, right? Now, when you put that in the pot, right? We're going to make a stew. When you put that in the pot with concepts of patriarchy and men providing, you kind of get to where we are here. This insane notion, right? This supercharged notion of men being provider. It's no longer about stability. Now it's about extravagance and opulence, right? And a lot of this is inspired, once again, for those of you that didn't hear me before, it's been inspired by some of your divestors and some of your swirler queens and some of your black women in luxury, black women soft life, right? These people that hyper focus on the aesthetics of things. And their real gripe and argument and anger and resentment at the world, but primarily black men, is that they're not seeing Vogue magazine edited versions of black women. They're not seeing black women in essentially the exact same light as, a thin white supermodel. In other words, what I'm saying is, imagine a Chanel commercial, or an Armani commercial, or one of these, Louis commercial, any one of these type of commercials that show the women on the yacht or on the beach or near a waterfall, or in these really nice opulent settings, right? Expensive settings, some royal home, a castle or something like that, a manor. Black women want to see themselves, many black women, but particularly these swirler divester, black women and luxury women, they want to see themselves in those situations, right? Can somebody remind me what was the name of the prime minister after Margaret Thatcher, right? Maybe one or two after her. His face is in my mind. I can't get it out right now. Please, someone look it up for me, please, and put it in the chat so I could say it so that the people can know who I'm speaking about. Because his face is there. I can't get it out. But yes. So, Tony Blair. No, you said Tony Blair. Tony Blair. Thank you, Spain man. Tony Blair. Yes. That's who I'm speaking about. Jesus Christ. I couldn't get it out. So Tony Blair in Britain and Bill Clinton in America followed up with that neoliberal ideology. And so what, in my estimation, and one of my political science, and that was my major in college, but I'm a college dropout, maybe one of my political science degree having brothers, or one of my historians can tell me if I'm wrong, they followed up with those policies that came from Reagan and Thatcher. And I think that has so thoroughly confused the political left and the political right that are not really in the know, because they see and I think this also exacerbates the culture war. And I'm going to tie that into this kind of neoliberal black woman mindset that we see. This exacerbates the culture war because the concepts of and it exacerbates the notion of meritocracy, which is not a thing, right? What you have because of this neoliberal project is there is no more public sector good, right? We're not doing things for society more anymore or community. It's all about me. And the left and the right have adopted that, both political left and political right, right? So what's left on the table is not really advocating for your government to do better for you. It's looking next door or looking at the man or woman next to you and expecting them to pick up the slack. Now, as a man and as a black man, what does that then mean for you? Right? Now, remember, we're also working with a insane notion of meritocracy, right? So what that means is forget slavery, at least in my estimation, forget Jim Crow, forget everything that has presided pre-1990. The world starts in 1985 or 1990, you choose the year, but definitely the world doesn't start in 1619. The world doesn't start in 1492, right? None of those things matter. The world doesn't start in 1865 or the end of World War II in 1945. The world doesn't even start with some of the civil rights legislation in the 1960s, 1950s, and 1960s. The world starts in 85 or 1990, and black men get judged from that point. And individual black men get judged from that point. Right? And then obviously there's a hyper focus on merit. Right? So this is why you see, yes, you hear black men saying this, but black women saying, how long are black men going to use slavery as an excuse? So what? Get over it. I was told to my face, not literally to my face, but to my face on the breakdown, I don't know if the ladies remember, by a young woman when I was mentioning Jim Crow and redlining, get over it. This is a young black woman telling a black man to get over it. About Jim Crow, not even slavery. Remember, Mr. Z is not ADOS. But Jim Crow and redlining, and you had a black woman telling a black man to get over it. When you have a neoliberal assessment, and when you truly believe in a meritocracy, that is how you speak. Right? We have another quote. Looking at the world and our transactions and daily life through the eyes of the market. This is how you get concepts of the marriage market, the dating market, the housing market, job market, everything through a market lens. This exacerbates also, think about when people are talking about how good a woman looks. Is she a 6? Is she a 7? Is she a 8? Is she a 9? Once again, women judging men off of that. But for them in particular, it's not just the looks, but the status. What does that automatically do to black men, and what does that automatically do to white men in our society in particular? When we're giving a market valuation of looks, right, of status, what does that automatically do? This would also explain Asian men, right? Both South Asian men and East Asian men. Yes, they might make on average more than their white male counterparts, but they're still not white in a white supremacist society. So their market valuation still isn't as high. Now, what's interesting about this, and this is what comes to my mind, and some of my lefties are going to be probably thought about this, public risk but private profit. Now, when Cynthia G, when Paris Milan, right? When Mahogany Pink plays with this, when Lexus Exodus plays with this, when they say, what have black men built? The first thing that comes to my mind is public risk and private profit. What have black men done? What have black men, excuse my language, raped, pillaged, conquered, destroyed, taken over so that I, as a black woman, and other black women can live in the lap of luxury? What have you risked to put me in a extravagant, opulent, super nice position? Right? I want to stress this. This is not just a swirler, divester, black woman in luxury, black woman soft life. This is not just regulated to these very loud and obnoxious women and girls on the interwebs, on social media. This is not just regulated to women that live and die off of social media memes and gifs and imagery. Shout out to the brother D Scott. He says cake, 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 cake. Right? This is not regulated to just those particular women. So once again, the public risk and private profit, that is what comes to mind. Right? And I'm particularly reminded of this because of two people, three people actually, and I'm gonna name them: Paris Milan, Lexus Exodus, and Chrissy. Chrissy recently said she leans right, and I'm, by the way, for all the brothers and sisters who are politically right and you have a conservative worldview, this is not necessarily a dig at you or insulting you. But I want us to think about what this also means when you pour just mountains of water of market valuation on this, right? So, once again, I don't know how true this is, but there was a brother in my comments that told me that Lexus Exodus works somewhere in corporate America, which would explain her market valuation on black masculinity. You couple that with the fact that, from my understanding, her child's father is black, but she is in a non-black interracial relationship. Most likely, she has some type of crystalline kerosene type story with her black baby daddy. Now, you couple that with her very clear, constant interview voice. So, working corporate America, most likely has a shady, shaky situation with her black baby daddy. Her interview voice, which lets us know that she can turn it on and off. So the brother might actually be right that she works in corporate America. So she's rubbing elbows with these type of white people, right? And clearly you can see how she gets to her market valuation of white manhood and masculinity and black manhood and masculinity. That's Lexus Exodus. Then we have Chrissy. Chrissy, in one of her recent lives, said she leans right. She tends to lean right. This was when she was speaking about the Candace Owens and Kanye West White Lives Matter shirt. She did caution her subscribers to not go full on Candace Owens. Right? But in that, she said she tends to lean right. Now, if you tend to lean right, then you also adopted a lot of this market valuation of manhood and masculinity. That would automatically put black men at the bottom and white men at the top, and other men of color somewhere in the middle. Obviously, that's dependent on their ethnicity and all that other stuff, right? This is why these things matter. Then we have Paris Milan, who brings up ad nauseum, we live in a capitalist society, we live in a capitalist society, this is capitalism, right? This would also speak to Paris Milan herself in one of her recent lives, saying that she's slowly gonna go to more lifestyle branding, and she wanted, essentially she wants to remarket herself, because now it's about showing black women, and this is why you see these women, including some women on the left. We're not going to throw black women on the right under the bus without throwing some of these supposed left-leaning black women. This is why they're so hyper-focused with optics. And as human beings, we care how we look, we care how we're perceived. So I'm not even chastising them too much with that. I'm saying they're hyper-focused with optics and aesthetics. And for them, white femininity with a splash of blackness is the goal. Chocolate dip, upper middle class, and rich white women. When Mr. Z says that, I'm not pulling that out of my rear end. Right? And when you hear about some of these women's complaints about black men, that is where it leads you to. Working class black men are ignored. These women hyper focus on men that are making some 75, 80,000 plus dollars a year and above, which means they pretty much wipe off black men, just about all white men, just about all Asian men, just about all Latino men. A hyper focus on the top 20%. Really, it's the top 5%, but we're being nice. Leads you to where we are now, when eventually no man is actually good enough. These numbers are also reflected, and a few years ago we had this conversation ad nauseum when those dating statistics came out for online, and it showed that men judge women on a smooth bell curve, right? Where we see maybe 20% of women as supremely attractive, 60% of women somewhere in the middle, and then another 20% of women as maybe not so attractive. Where women, all of it was 80% average and ugly. And actually less than 20% of men. So they didn't find women, this is women in general, not just black women. This is women before we control for race. Like no woman found men supremely attractive. That was not a thing. A handful of women found men to be, different types of men to be very attractive, but most men were either average to ugly, by far. The men that were considered somewhat attractive didn't even break 20%. I don't even remember if it broke 15%. Right? So, a market valuation of men and masculinity automatically puts white men at the top and black men at the bottom. Then you mix with that who people have been socialized to find physically attractive, and that puts a handful of black men. This is where you get your Tyrones, your chisel chin brothers with the six pack and whatever, but also white men that show, or that are really good at showing a certain aesthetic, that also might be tall and physically attractive to these women. That puts them all the way at the top. What does a market valuation also do? It also means that those men more and more and more get to have their way with more and more women. This is why y'all see more and more young men saying they haven't had sex for a year plus. Men under the age of 30. That doesn't mean no men are having any sex under the age of 30. What it does mean is that split economically is also showing itself socially. The dating numbers show that. The online dating numbers, my apologies, show that. A handful of men are having their way with women across the board. These men aren't just having sex with 9s and 10s. They're having sex with pretty much 3s, 4s, and above. Right? 3s, 4s, and above. What does that do to the mind of a woman that might not be that attractive, but Brad, right, or Tyrone came from Mount Olympus and had sex with her anyway, maybe took her out a couple times, maybe even paid for her expensive date 1 or 2 times. She has that experience once or twice, and that's her bar. Maybe not once, but 2 or 3 times, and that's her bar. Once again, a market valuation of manhood and masculinity. She can't go back after that. And she will be chasing after that first high for the rest of her life. Because 6'3", 6'2", chisel chin, pack Tyrone or Brad smash once or twice. It is not the men. We have done up, and to be fair to the overall society, we have done a pretty good job at socializing our men and boys to be accepting of, at worst, a gynocracy or matriarchy, and at best an egalitarian relationship with women in general and their individual woman. We have done a pretty good job of that over the past 50 years. What we haven't done is that same job with women who are virtue signaling, wanting some type of egalitarian relationship with men in general and with their individual man in a relationship, intimate relationship. But all the data says that's BS. As Miss Chantel Bug said, Dr. Chantel Bug said, women seem to have some type of disjunction between what they're saying and who they actually choose, right? Translation, they're hypocrites. They're not self-aware. And you could see Dr. Chantel on that interview trying to contort herself all type of ways to not bluntly say it. Men are more self-aware than women. Men are more self-aware of why they put different women in different categories, who they see as sexable and who they see as relationship and wifey model, and they clearly understand why they're putting these women in these categories. And they go through with it. Women, on the other hand, don't want to be honest with themselves. I find these men attractive, but I know these men aren't going to stay. Once again, beta books. What is it? Beta bucks, beta fucks, cucks, or whatever. I can't remember how to get it out fully. I'm sorry, you guys. See, we're using colloquialisms and slang for these things. And then the sociologists, the social scientists, the demographers are coming back. These are doctors. These are people that have been studying these things for 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 years. Come back behind us and prove us right. Now they're screaming in their chair when they prove us right. They're trying to word these things with all the best euphemisms when they prove us right. They're gritting their teeth when they prove us right. Or they're just not showing the information. But we are being proven right. A neoliberal market valuation of manhood and masculinity is how you get here. What does here look like? Less sex amongst young people, less marriages, less intimacy, right? Less dating, less children, That's how you get here. Because the bar is no longer stability, it's extravagance. And men are not the ones who put the bar there, women did. So when Mr. Z says in a previous video, let them eat cake, that's what I'm being animated by. Once again, this society working really hard to chastise their men and boys to not be sexist monsters, to not be misogynistic monsters, but having very little to no talk to their girls and women, who reserve the right to be misandrous and clearly neoliberal at the same time. It is not so much men putting a market valuation on women, it is women putting a market valuation on men. You couple that with the fumes and the shadow of patriarchy, and you get here. Men are still supposed to be the providers, but now women have an insane notion of what it means to be a provider. Once again, it's not stability. Now, is this all women or all black women? No, it is not. No, it is not. Now, is it a majority or a large minority? Now, that's debatable. And what makes this so frightening, and yes, it's gonna sound like women are children. These people aren't even self-aware. So I'm not going to put words in Miss Dr. Chantel Buggs' mouth. She did not say this. This has nothing to do with her. This is just purely Mr. Z. These people aren't even self-aware. As a matter of fact, if you were to try to explain this to them, where you would get is what black men like Mr. Z are doing is just using excuses, right? All of this is excuses. Because everybody thinks they get to their ideology in a vacuum or purely off of personal experiences. This is another problem with neoliberalism, is that you don't think all of these things are acting on you and influencing you to get to the place you are. Even the dark place you are. You think you got to the dark place you are, if you even acknowledge that, because of something some dusty black men did, right? Or something black men haven't done. Or something negative that black men have done. None of this has to do with your, and I'm speaking to black women in particular, none of this have to do with you internalizing a white market valuation of manhood and masculinity. Once again, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat, everyone. Super chats will be read out loud. Right? What has 40 plus years of Milton Friedman-esque, was it Frederick Hayek-esque? I can't remember which one of them was the free market liberal, right? From a few centuries ago. If it was Hayek or the other one. But in modern terms, Chicago boy, Milton Friedman-esque way of viewing the world, where they got politicians, these are presidents and prime ministers, saying there's no such thing as society. Right? You trickle that down into the actual society, not just economic based, but how we internalize that in our daily lives. When you know the safety net is super thin. This is why when Mr. Z, for those of you that remember when I first came in, if the brother AL is still in here, I told y'all stop using that welfare queen stuff. Because Bill Clinton shredded that in the 90s. Does that mean that some of us don't have a one or two girl cousins that's still trying to piecemeal that together? Maybe, but that's not a thing anymore. The public sector goods have been shredded in the West. Well, not fully in the West. Certain Northern European countries still have a solid safety net. But in America in particular, right? Also, we understand the concept of no romance, no finance. What happens when that's supercharged with a neoliberal assessment of and a market valuation of manhood and masculinity? Right? Once again, public risk, private profit. So let me read some of those quotes for you, y'all, again. Margaret Thatcher says, there is no such thing as society. She also says, there is no such thing as public money. I hear there is no such thing as public good when she says that. Ronald Reagan says, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. So once again, when you look at the world and our transactions in daily life through the eyes of the market, and who truly wants the cheap brand when you go to a store? You get the cheap brand because you can afford other things. Black women feel like they're walking through the store and they're being forced to pick the cheap brand. Black men. And even if they had the money to pick the nicer brand of black men, non-black women, just because of their whiteness or their proximity to whiteness, hurry up, rushed him, but pushed him out the way, grabbed the cereal, the black cereal, and run out the aisle. But black women don't realize they're doing the same thing. You're only really valuing the black cereal because another person wants it. Low key, you want the white cereal. It's low key out here in the real world, in IRL, right? But online, where everybody feels like they have some anonymity, when the data is tracked, it shows women of color pining for white men because of their valuation of masculinity and manhood. Because their femininity cannot be truly validated outside of the group of people that colonized, raped, and pillaged the planet. I want to stress this again. It is not men of color that rate white women as the most attractive. It is women of color that rate white men as the most attractive, or at least appealing. Maybe they don't find white men to be the most attractive, but overall, what white masculinity has meant on this planet for the better take 500 years, 5 centuries, means that women of color put that masculinity on top. And also gay men outside of black men. So black gay men do not rate white gay men or white men in general at the top. So what does all of that mean? Men of color, particularly black men, including gay black men, are not chasing after white women. So from now on, when your swirlers and divestors say there is data that shows otherwise. And as a matter of fact, I will leave that, and I got to splice it out for y'all. I will leave that that video in my description. And then what I will do for you is I will timestamp it so we could get to the part, because it's about 6 or 7 minutes long. Most swirlers and divestors and black women in luxury will not listen to that. But I want y'all to have it. The particular section that I'm speaking of. Because it needs to be stressed that the concept of meritocracy is a bunch of crap. Once again, The Myth of Meritocracy, right? Written by Michael Sandel, PhD out of Harvard. White man, not even a black man. Right? When Mr. Z speaks, I don't pull these things out of my rear end. Once again, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Let me see. Maybe I pressed the wrong thing, right? So, as Miss Jennifer Lundquist was saying, it's the women, and race is the determining factor, right? These people have adopted this neoliberal lens of the view of viewing the world, and so we get here. And how does this look in a century? Well, it looks like what the market looks like now, too big to fail, where women are stuck between a rock and a hard place. The ones that want to be a man's one and only, but also wanting an extravagant lifestyle. How do you pair the two? When so many women are okay with being your man's side chick number 3, side chick number 4, side chick number 7, because of the money and the status. Now, the reason why meritocracy matters so much, or the concept of meriting your way through, is the more and more we go on, we see how much that's a lie. Think of the college school scandal. Think of Mitt Romney. Think of Trump, right? Donald Trump. All of these people that got a, air quotes, small loan of $1 million from their fathers. All right. Think of Hunter Biden, a whole crackhead. Haven't seen a day in jail. How many black women and other women of color would be perfectly okay with being married to Hunter Biden over your standard run of the mill? I won't even put them all the way with the $40,000, $45,000 a year man, even the $60,000 a year man. How many women of color, black women in particular, would be with the whole crackhead Hunter Biden over here sleeping with his dead brother's wife? Yes, Hunter Biden, when Beau Biden passed of what cancer I think it was, Hunter Biden left his wife to be in a relationship with Beau Biden's wife. Yes, Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is a super slime ball. He eventually left Beau Biden's wife for some young model-esque white woman who he had a child with, if I'm not mistaken. But how many black women would be perfectly okay with being in that situation for the lifestyle that Hunter Biden would provide them for when he's not on the pipe? Literally. Literally on the pipe. Not just as an insult or a joke. How many black women would be perfectly okay with being with what's the Proud Boy name again? The one from Hawaii? Just like that dark skinned sister. That sister was cute. Right? But you're in a relationship with a Proud Boy. Sorry. You're married and have a child from a Proud Boy. Look how far Candace Owens is willing to go. A market valuation of masculinity and manhood would have y'all being the wife to Hitler. right? And making excuses for it. Well, black men didn't build. And what am I supposed to do? Oh, well, Hitler standing in the middle of a field of dead Jewish bodies and talking to his people like, you know what? I need to feed my dog. I'm not being a really good owner to this dog. While he's standing in a field full of dead bodies. And y'all think black women wouldn't, there's not all, now that one I don't even think it's most, but you not telling me a nice size, a minority of black women wouldn't sign up for that just for the lifestyle, just so they can be seen on camera next to a powerful, rich white man? See, I don't think my detractors know how serious this is. They don't know how bad it is, and they definitely don't realize how many women, black women, would sign up for that. I'm speaking about T Noir. Well, T Noir probably don't even know about me. But FD Signifier. Let's talk about a person that we know does know that Mr. Z exists. FD Signifier. He thinks it's just the swirlers, divestors, and the black women and luxury women. He severely underestimates how many women of color, black women in particular, would be perfectly okay with marrying a proud boy. He underestimates how many black women want to be Candace Owens. Because of their market valuation of manhood and masculinity. And they're not letting it go for your lefty projects of community. In their mind, that's why I mentioned those quotes, there is no such thing as the black community. Because the black community didn't put them in the most opulent position. See, and this is me getting back at TYT and those two brothers that were on there, the light-skinned brother and the dark-skinned brother. I left a link in the description. I think it was the previous video I just did. The two black men talking about the manosphere. Y'all severely underestimate women of color, black women in particular, market-based understanding of manhood and masculinity. They're not, when they say men are not stepping up, they're not talking about men not washing their ass. They're not talking about men's hygiene or even men being stable. Are there men, young men, that are sleeping on their mom or their grandma's couch for years on end? Yes, of course. Right? But are those who the women are really speaking about? No. They have a contempt for stability now. That's what we're working on now. Right? Spainman says, I saw an AKA swirler hop out of her bins with a vape shop worker looking white dude yesterday. I guess she's winning though. Maybe. Right? Because white guys get to beauty dig because of their status. And don't get it misconstrued. They know. Like we said in a previous video, they're not giving that up for nothing. I can't get a particularly good looking white woman. Maybe I'm an average looking white guy, but I can't get the baddest white woman. But I can get a pretty good looking black woman simply because I'm white. Before we talk about my height, before we talk about my personality, before we talk about my character, my work ethic, any of that, my sex game, any of that. And white men know this, and they're not giving that up. Beauty digging on Asian women, beauty digging on black women, on Latina women, they're not giving that up. And I don't blame them for not giving that up, quite frankly. What's funny is the black women, Latina women, Asian women that think they had a come up, and then 2 and 5 years into the marriage they realize that white dude only make 50, he's only gonna make 50,000, and that's their life. Right? She met them at $35,000 a year. He went up to 50, 55, and that's it. By the way, that's not the worst thing in the world, but she thought he was gonna be a six-figure dude. So now she got a choice: divorce or stay with him. Spain Man says funny part was she was walking ahead of him and had shades on, like she was trying to avoid, like she was trying to stay anonymous. Right? This is what black women are signing up for. This is what other women of color are signing up for. So, are there significant groups of women that are Republican? Yes. That are independent? Yes. Definitely that are Democrats? Yes. But have a left maybe, or just a different idea, or they question how they question men. They question how they look at men. They question how they view masculinity, especially over the past 40 years or so. No. No. And this also, once again, speaks to Dr. Chantel Buggs speaking about their disjunction, right? And then what was interesting is Dr. Chantel Buggs speaking about how until she said it to these women didn't even understand how they were viewing men and how they were putting certain men in one category and other men in another category, or how they were speaking like, you know what, I'm open to all of this different thing, but they kept on going for the same type of thing. Does that sound familiar to us, men in the black manosphere? Speaking to women, speaking to your nieces, speaking to your sisters about the men that they go after. Right? And they go after the same dudes. Right? So let's make that very clear. Mr. Z is not pulling this out of his rear end. This is the neoliberal assessment of manhood and masculinity. Does that mean that black men are forever screwed? No. But it does mean this is the background music, right, of our lives right now. Right? And we're going to assume that we cannot expect women in general, women of color specifically, and even more specifically, black women, right, to be introspective enough and be self interrogating enough to question why they want what they want, why they like what they like, and what they're really saying when they speak about black men in all of these negative ways. And as comparison to who, right? And are they willing to make, and more importantly, okay, fine, black men are the worst thing on the world, in the world, they haven't built, they haven't, are you willing to sacrifice what these other women have sacrificed? Are you willing to get your hands dirty? Are you willing to get the blood on your hands like the missionaries, where they came in as the good cop and the white colonial masters came in as the bad cop? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take a religion, bastardize it, and use it as the softer hand of colonialism? Right? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to have hundreds of millions of bodies on your hands? You've heard Bill Burr, white man, married to a black woman, but white man. Talk to white women, stop being mad about your cut. You were in the car with us. You were with us. You were with us when we committed all of our atrocities against the rest of humanity. Black women, you willing to do that with black men? Obviously, a handful of you are willing to do it with white men, right? Y'all are, some of you are open to being the mammies of empire, but y'all want to do this knowingly with black men? Go find another planet, colonize it, rape it, pillage it, take over the resources, just so 20% of y'all, 25% of y'all could live upper middle class and above? No, let's make it real blunt. Just so 20% of y'all, 25% of y'all could look down on other people, including some other black women. Just so you could take pictures in a five-star hotel and show your 200 plus $300 dinner dates picture, so y'all could take the picture of the plate and the food, right? I wanted to talk about this today because I wanted to stress that this is not about stability. This is not about men not washing their ass, washing their rear end. This, once again, neoliberal, the definition, favoring policies that promote free market capitalism, deregulation, and a reduction in government spending. This is about that. This is about women in general. That's all women, including white women, but particularly black women, evaluation of manhood through a market-based lens, and then deeming a significant, if not most, men lacking through that lens, right? Spamman said, you know, Bill Burr would be the perfect person to take some of the wind out of the sails of divestors. He would. But I don't think Bill Burr has it in him to look at black women in the face and be like, I'm rare. I like black women. I have a black wife. I think he has 2 kids now with her, 2 or 3. Right? But how, just straight up telling black women, look, most white men ain't me. They don't have the money I have. They don't have the status I have. They're not going to have it. And I don't know how many of them actually find black women attractive. Definitely attractive enough to marry. And then have the status I have where other white men know better than to talk crazy to them about their black wife. Right? But what we know is, once again, using some of what Dr. Chantel Buggs said, these people are just, they're just not self-aware. And they don't want to be. That's what I would add on to what she's saying. They don't want to be. There's something about sitting with the ugliness that is you, right? The things that you won't change about you, you're stubborn to change them about you, but you know that that's much of the reason why you might find yourselves in some of these predicaments you find yourselves in that are not that great. There's something about sitting in that and being like, ugh, yeah, I'm not that great at this, and this is half the reason why I don't have these things that I want. There's something about sitting in that. And I don't think most women, most black women in particular, can honestly do that, because they would have to be honest about why they got divorced, why they're not still married, why they're not still in that relationship with that guy from 5 and 6 and 7 years ago, or why so many men keep on hitting it and quitting it, or why even for the ones that haven't had sex, why they haven't had sex in 2, 3, 5, 6 years, why they can't keep a man, why their own sister won't stay around them too long, why their own mothers or daughters won't stay around them too long. I don't think most women have that in them. Trail Bentley, you ain't ish, bro. Trail Bentley says they can't even be honest about their edges. Oh, shout out to the baby hairs. Right? Like I said in a previous video, let them eat cake. If more and more men in general are not good enough, and more black men in particular aren't good enough, based off of black women and other women, and excuse my background, right? But based off of black women and other women of color valuation of manhood and masculinity, and then deeming black men as lacking, if what you're saying is that black men aren't good enough, then eat cake or be the bust down for some white dude. We already said sexuality is fluid, right? Fine then. Go join Willow Smith in your pansexual endeavors. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not even trying to be insulting. I'm saying this is the logical conclusion of your words, of your sentiments, of your ideology. If you think black men are less than, clearly through white men's actions for centuries, they are not interested in marrying black women. Right? And they're not even interested in marrying Latina women outside of white Latina women. Not in any significant number. Then deal with the consequences of that. And the consequences of that are either you being by yourself, you being in relationships with other black women, intimate relationships with other black women, or you being the side chick to a man with some status and some money, regardless of his race, white, black, Latino, Asian, or otherwise. And I'm saying that I want to be so blatant and clear, so that when somebody researches this one day, and we find out that women in general, black women specifically, other women of color, are engaging in side chick behavior knowingly. Not that the man's lying to them. The man is telling, hey, I'm in a serious relationship, I'm not leaving her. Or I'm married and I'm not leaving her. But you can be my side chick. And those women are engaging in that knowingly, knowing that they're side chick number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't want to hear nothing from FD Signifier or T Noir. I don't want to hear nothing from Kim from Fort Harriet. I don't want to hear anything from Nappy Headed Jojoba or Julesy. Right? I want us to know Mr. Z and maybe other black men in the black manosphere predicted this and said this is what's going to happen because of women's idea of what manhood should be and masculinity and money and status. That concept of, we've been hearing it since slavery, but one of the more recent iteration is Cola Booth. I would rather be the white man's whore than the gum on the bottom of a black man's shoe. And when she said it, people thought like, oh my God, black men are that abusive, that they're that neglectful, right? They're that poor, they're that much losers. No. There's what you say, and then there's what you mean when you say what you say. No, what she's really saying, and let's be very clear, is if I can't have the top of the top of the top of a black man, the richest black man, the Diddy's and the Jay-Z's of the world of black men, the Dr. Dre's of black men, then I would rather be the basic Bob white man's whore. That's what she's really saying. A market valuation of manhood and masculinity puts whiteness, basic Bob, $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year white men on the same level as an $80,000 and $100,000 a year black man. Y'all remember the study that came out that your college educated black people still have the same wealth as the high school dropout white people? Or it was white men in particular, right? Your college educated black men have the same wealth as your high school dropout white men. Black women have decided, shit, I might as well be with a high school dropout white man. So has Latina women and even some Asian women. But mainly Latina and black women. And there's nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying is when the consequences from decades of that ideology show themselves, I don't want any chastising of black men from all of the content creators I just listed. It is not black men. It is black women. It is Latina women. It is Asian women. It is indigenous women that have decided that white manhood is manhood. And they're not fighting it. Fine. Right? If white manhood is manhood, it is the manhood. Deal with the consequences. If you have a market valuation of masculinity and manhood, and clearly there's not enough men, generally speaking, white, black, Latino, Asian, indigenous, or otherwise, that reach your 80, 100, thousand, $120,000 threshold, then deal with years of being single or engaging in same-sex relationship or being, the addition to a married man. Being his mistress if we want to be nice. Being his side chick if we want to be crude and be honest. All right. Once again, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Super chats will be read out loud. Right? I had to do this today. Because I'm hearing, these different divestors and swirlers kind of show themselves a little bit more and more. And they're exposing more and more that their issue is more about being stuck with normal and regular black men and not being able to be with the upper middle class and rich men in general, not just black men, but men. And that's their real gripe. Their real gripe is that they don't get to be shown or be seen in the same light as Becky, as Karen, as Miss Ann. Not Roseanne, but Miss Ann. They have a disdain, and this is the one thing that FD actually gave it up to. He actually said this, right? That they have a disdain. They don't like working class men, which is men in general. That's not just a black man thing, that's a man thing. Trail Bentley consort. Yes, if I want to be nice, I would say consort, but I don't want to be nice, and I don't want to use euphemisms or old English. Let's call a thing a thing. Let's make it nasty. Let's put the stink on it. Side chick. All right. That's what they are. And this is where we are. Because you have to wonder if more and more young men are saying they're going years plus not having sex, and you have to know if they're not having sex, they're also not having those intimate moments. So it's not just the sex. I keep on stressing that. But yet women's sex rate might be going down, but not at the rate of the men. Then what does that mean? See, that's the part that Kim from Fort Harriet did not want to speak about. That's the part that Khadijah doesn't want to speak about. Right? Either they didn't pay attention to what this is, the subtext, what isn't being said. Well, less and less young men are having sex, but the women's sex rate is pretty steady. Then who are the women having sex with? With each other or with the same man? Right? So when you see those 3 and 4 dudes in Tennessee, when you put them together, they have like some 70, 80 something kids amongst them, right? That means that there were men that were not having sex with those women. So 3 and 4 men are having sex with all of these women, enough to have how many babies from them, right? Some 20 something, 30 something children amongst them, for each of them. And then when you combine them, all of those men together are sitting on some 70, 80 something children. That's how many men that don't have kids in Tennessee. Haven't had sex in a year plus in Tennessee. You want to tell those men that the problem is that they don't want to get off their mother's couch? These men weren't working no great jobs. I will not insult a woman for her supposed, or air quotes, preference. I will not. I would not tell her what she needs to be interested in. I would not tell her, no, it's not my job. I will just tell you the consequences. And let's see if they play out the way I say they will. Because right now it's looking like the consequences are going to play out the way many of us say they will. Detroit, what are you saying? Detroit says they're more divestors supporting that, but they say Asian men were on that show, but there's no sign of them either. I'm lost. You gotta go into detail. Right? So I'm about to come to a close, you guys, but I just wanted to go over neoliberalism again, part 2, speak about how I think it is affecting the way women view the world, the way women, in particular in the West, but particularly in America, view manhood, masculinity, right? View themselves, how women view themselves, right? You also, and I should have said this in the beginning, you can see this with the marriage rate and the divorce rate. Who's getting married? What it's looking like is the entry for marriage is somewhere, for men, is somewhere around 42 plus, 45 plus $1,000 a year, right? That's the entry point for marriage right now. The number one reason for divorce in America is money. Women file for somewhere between 70 and 80% of divorces. Trell, Trell says Negro liberalism. Nah, serious. Yes. Black women, Negro liberalism. And when we say liberalism, for those of you that are listening, we're not talking about your political affiliation. We're not talking about liberalism as associated with left-leaning politics. We're speaking about free market ideology when it talk about economy, right? Or your market-based, your economic view of relationships and manhood and all of that. So this is not necessarily about your political affiliation as much as it is about the way you view people through a consumerist lens, a market-based lens, right? You're commodifying other people, other human beings. And most likely you're deeming black men as inadequate. As a group, at least. Okay, I see what you're saying. Detroit 313 says, well, I can't give you the details because what I meant is there's no Asian men going to support the swirl movement. Even they're not in the comment section. That's true. That's true. Like I said, years and years and years ago, after Issa Rae, not Lisa Rae, but Issa Rae, said what she said about black women getting with Asian men, and she was on what Wilcox show saying that. I was able to view uh one of those kind of chat boxes online, and Asian men were speaking about this, and they were not impressed. They were not flattered by what Issa Rae was saying. As a matter of fact, they were very skeptical, and they were actually somewhat offended by what she was saying. And they actually saw right through it. They were like, no, that's black women waging war on black men, and so we're the next best thing because they can't get white men. Yeah, it was they were not for it. And I think BGS heard the same stream I did once where a black dude was begging white dudes to come and get black women. He was like, yeah, they might not be the most fit, and yeah, you know, you might have to deal with a little bit of sass, but black women are out here. They want y'all. And white men were in the comment section ripping. These are incels. This was an incel page. These white men are not getting sex. And they were ripping. It was actually pretty sad. I'm not joking. They were ripping black women apart. They were calling black women all type of whales. They were just, you know. So that's why that's why y'all saw I changed it when how I speak about that swirler divester thing. I'll describe the landscape and overall environment, but what would I also do? Now I'm also with the brother Edward Anderson in encouraging black women to go in that direction if they so choose, because we know how that's gonna look. The very few, only 1%. Shay Sade put that information out a little while ago. Only 1%, and I put it also in my community chat. Somewhat like some 1% of white dudes ever marry a black woman. Some 1%. So most likely, you don't get the ring. At most, you get to be something that he does on occasion until he's done. That's okay. That's something that aspiring swirlers and divestors are going to have to. I mean, we have brothers in LA that's telling you they got Latino homeboys that are married to Latinas and whose side chick is a black chick, and they refuse to marry a black woman. Black black women don't want to be honest about what this world is. They only know chastise and beat up on black men. But the masses of them, and I'm going to continue to kind of remix what Dr. Chantel Bug said. I know she didn't mean it in this way, because I can see her contorting herself not to be offensive to women when she said what she said. They're not self-aware. You ever meet a woman, and I got to say this, who swears she was in a relationship with a dude, but when you talk to the dude, he will tell you, nah, we was just, we were just having fun. But she can't say that's what it was. I'm reminded of Nas's ex, the one that Jay-Z tried to make fun of him about. Condoms in the baby seat and whatnot. She really think maybe her and Nas were an item, but she really think her and Jay-Z were a thing. No, lady. And you will find that with women in general because they can't be honest. But especially black women. So imagine black women that are the bust down for white dudes. They are going to tell themselves they're in a relationship. Or this is a thing, right? Miss Cartwright, you're never going to, shout out to Charles Faulkner, you're never going to be Miss Cartwright. And once again, that's not all black women. Every once in a while, a black woman actually gets the ring. But it's not a thing. If we all been indoctrinated with this neoliberal assessment of each other, and black women, along with other women of color, and then other women in general, also have a neoliberal assessment of masculinity. Ladies, you don't think these white dudes have a neoliberal assessment of femininity? I mean, it was them that instituted this whole entire economic landscape. You know that, right? So if white men have a neoliberal assessment of femininity, what do you think they think about black women? Oops. Y'all think that Valley Girl, that fake Valley Girl voice, that vocal fry, you think it actually works? You think they don't see? Like, once again, I don't know why we think people don't see what they see. People know what it is. You're not the only one with a neoliberal assessment of relationships and sex and the opposite sex and status and money and all of that. You're not the only one. If you reserve the right to commodify the opposite sex, and once again, like, share, subscribe, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat, thank you button for the replay squad, right? If you have commodified the opposite sex as a woman, and you reserve the right to view, different people the way you want to view them, and for you, it's the market-based assessment, you have a market-based lens on, glasses on, then how do you not think that there are not going to be men, specifically white men, even more specifically a white man with something to lose? How do you not think that he will view these things with that similar lens? This is not about this is not about scaring people. This is not about, insulting people. This is what it is. And the numbers are reflecting what I'm saying more and more. That's why I bring up, look at who's getting married, and more importantly, look at who's staying married. It wouldn't be this way if we as a society didn't think it was okay to follow behind Milton Friedman. Right? If we didn't think it was okay to vote in politicians that told you, oh yeah, those institutions, yeah, we're going to destroy those. All your institutions that bolster up a communal mindset and an idea of working for the greater good in society and community and, foster unionization, yeah, we're destroying all of those. I mean, a marriage is literally a union. I mean, literally. Oh, wait. Y'all, when y'all saw Reagan busting up unions and then bring you no fault divorce, you thought your marriage was gonna last? Huh? He literally busted up unions. Your marriage is literally a union. Yeah, it's a union amongst two, but he literally busted up unions. What you thought was gonna happen? What did you think was gonna happen? Clinton brought you to. So get this right. Reagan busted up the unions, and then Clinton brought you to consolidation of corporate structures of the elite of their wealth. How does that trickle down into your relationships, your intimate relationships? Breaking up your unions, your marriages, and then the people with the money and the status gets to consolidate all of that. And guess what? They act as a magnet to women, to women's emotions, and to their mentality, their mental state. Deregulation. I said it before when I just defined neoliberalism. A deregulated market. That means a deregulated marriage market. That means a deregulated dating market. That means Chisel Chin Tyrone and Chisel Chin Brad get everything. They were already piping all women in the 60s and the 50s and the 70s. Don't get it twisted. But the market was still regulated. So she was eventually going to have to get married. Whether she's white, black, Latina, or otherwise. She was eventually going to have to get married. And he was eventually going to have to get married. And yeah, he might have been cheating on his wife with these women, but that marriage slowed him down. What happens when the market is deregulated? The dating and the marriage market are deregulated. What happens then? These things don't just stay in cold, stuffy boardrooms, cold, stuffy lecture halls in colleges and universities in academia. They trickle down into the culture. They trickle down in the way that people think, the way people feel. And you're seeing that now. If neoliberalism stayed in the marketplace, we wouldn't be saying marriage market. We wouldn't be saying dating market. We would not be using those terms. The free market of ideas, we wouldn't be saying things like that. I believe the marketplace of ideas, you go and battle it out, and then the best idea wins. We wouldn't be saying that if it just stayed in academia, and definitely if it stayed in Wall Street or in London. Right? But when those ideologies trickle down through your society, you get to where we are here. When we take those market valuations of everything and commodifying everything outside of the marketplace, and we turn everything into marketplace, well, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Only if you like what Mr. Z is doing here, that is. All right. When you have leaders, presidents and prime ministers, tell you there's no such thing as society, how do you think that's not going to affect your marriages? Aren't black people the ones that keep on stressing it takes a village to raise a child? What happened when there's no village? It's just you and your wife, or you and your baby mama, or you and your girlfriend. And then maybe there's no you. Probably because she pushed you away. But still. Right? When Margaret Thatcher says there is, and yes, she wasn't the leader of America. But remember, her and Ronald Reagan had a very close relationship. And the economists were going, their economic ideology, deregulation was happening in America, in the US, right? Excuse me, America and in Britain, or America, the US and the UK at the same time. And they were leading the rest of the world down this way. Definitely the Western world. And so when Margaret Thatcher says there is no such thing as public money, which means there is no such thing as the public good, hear it for what she really means. You get to hear. There is no such thing. This is where you get, this adds on to the welfare queen concept, right? And it being a pejorative. And black women being the face of that. Right? You know, once they attach a black face to it, it becomes a negative. You attach a black face to weed, what, in the 1920s or something like that, it becomes a negative. In the 19-teens and the 1920s. You attach a black face to welfare queen, it becomes a negative. You add on to that the concept that there is no such thing as public money, which means there is no such thing as public good. That's what she really means. You get here. Then you privatize everything. College prices go through the roof. Housing prices go through the roof. Car prices go through the roof. Maintaining a relationship as a man in your entry point of marriage financially goes through the roof. This is why young people are waiting later and later to get married, because we turn marriage into a status symbol. Even more than it already was. And the entry point, the financial entry point is going through the roof. So when your median income for men is some $40,000, $41,000, $42,000, but then the median entry point for marriage at the base level, if you want to stay married for any length of time, is some $45,000, $50,000 and increasing. Guess what that means? Your marriage rate goes through what? Through the floor, not through the ceiling, but through the floor. And the price of staying married goes through the atmosphere. These things matter. Yes, it sounds cold and stuffy, and nobody want to think that you're subject to market valuations of everything. But guess what? Because of your economists and because of your leaders, you are subject to market valuation of everything. That's for the men and the women. And I feel very little sympathy if you adopt the market valuation of everything until it bites you in the rear end. So no to all the women who adopted this and who use market valuation language on everything. The Paris Milans of the world. Well, we live in a capitalist society, right? If you adopt that, and if your subscribers hear you say that and they're perfectly okay with it and they adopt it, but yet they've been single for years, no children, or have one child, but been single for years, I feel no sympathy for them. You're okay with this. And you're okay with judging men off of these very narrow way of viewing manhood and masculinity. Fine then. Deal with the consequences. This is why I came to you guys today with this. Cheryl Bentley said, the price to stay married, cuck yourself. Right? Indecent proposal, anyone? Right? And everybody thinks they're the one person that this is not gonna, it doesn't apply to you. Right? Because everybody thinks they're beyond commercials. And yet corporations of dollars on commercials. Which one of us is right? right? Governments are spending billions of dollars off of commercials. How, and wait a minute, what do you mean, Z? I don't see the government spending billions of dollars on commercials. Yes. When they tell you this economic ideology doesn't work, what do you think they're doing? That's a commercial. Look at this country. It failed because it believed in this. Wait, it didn't fall because y'all spent billions of dollars going overseas and destroying them? Or you spent millions of dollars finding out which group of people in the country has a problem with the government and then funding them to overthrow the government? That's not why that country failed? Okay, whatever. And then when they show you that on news, that is the commercial. When they show you that leader being toppled and being murdered, that is the commercial. Right? That is the commercial. That is the advert. The advert is telling you, hey, this world leader and his government believed in this. And look, the people are overturning him. And look, this new leader that we installed thinks the same thing that we think. And look, the country may not be doing that great, but there's rich people there now, more rich people than there were before, and they're richer than they were before. That's an advert. That is the commercial. Right? Once again, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. I'm just asking everyone to see these things a little differently and question these things. And I'm asking black men to listen to what women are telling you, not just black women. When y'all go on dates with them, I know that's not a thing anymore, but when you go out with them, when y'all doing Netflix and chill, for the 2 seconds y'all are talking to each other, listen to what she's saying. And evaluate if it's worth it or not, for real. Listen to what she's saying. Because the market valuation of man and masculinity is real. And holding you up to a rich white man's standard is real. But then calling that the standard and calling that and thinking of that more stability, right? It's real. And I am speaking to the future right now. When we see more and more women single, when we see more and more women engaging in same-sex activity and relationships, right? When we see the women that want traditional situations screaming at the top of their lungs, making video after video, I mean, we see it now, making video and video about how lonely they are, how single they are, how they're going out with that guy and this guy and this guy and that guy, because they're all going out with the same type of guys. Right? And they're lonely as hell. Right? Let it be known that Mr. Z tried to warn the whole world. Right? Look at the video. That was a sad video. Maybe some of you seen it, with the white Latina lady in her car talking about she's just not realizing in her 40s that all she got is her parents and her siblings. She don't got no man. And you can hear it in her voice. That was not funny. I did not find glee in that. That was sad. That was real. I don't know what her past is. I don't know what man she maybe used or played. You know she had to. But at least in this moment, from what we can see, to me, that was sad. It was sad seeing the light-skinned young lady, the sister with the braids, talking about she don't get her name said consistently. She don't know what love feel like. She don't know what it feels like to be touched, and that's sad. Now I'm not gonna say it's not their fault. Y'all probably adopted a neoliberal lens of everything, and now y'all feeling the back end of that. Pun intended. Well, pun not intended, because y'all not feeling the back end of nothing. Ain't nobody feeling on y'all back end. That's half the problem, right? DeVito says, how long we gotta see a bigger collapse of society, Mr. Z? Ooh. That's a really good question. I don't really know if I have an answer for that. DeVito, I don't know if I have an answer for that, brother. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know. And a number of things could end it tomorrow. Elite men deciding to change it tomorrow could end it tomorrow. Women deciding to change it tomorrow could end it tomorrow. Enough men burning Capitol buildings and banks around the country could end it tomorrow. Or this could take another century or two, because we just slow walk ourselves closer and closer to the edge of the cliff. And the edge of the cliff is complete social dystopia. I didn't say complete dystopia, because I really do think the technology, I keep on saying this, right? Technological utopia, social dystopia. Can we pull back? Yeah. Will we? I don't know. I don't know. I so don't know. I don't even want to put anything on it. I don't know. Right? I could wake up in 20 years and be like, oh crap, we hit the iceberg, but somehow we were able to patch up the Titanic and float our ass back to where we needed to go. Or we hit the Titanic, but we didn't sink all the way. We made it. Or we avoided the iceberg. I don't know. I don't. Low-key, you asking me to look through a crystal ball. Right? But I do think this continues for a little while longer. It's pretty bad, and even black women are feeling the pinch. But the way they're responding lets me know they don't really get it yet. So we're going to continue. I agree with BGS. You were never going to get ultra super humble conciliatory attitude. Bruh. These newfangles, no. These newfangled women, no, you're not getting that from them. You're not getting that from them. They would rather die under a bridge. All right? But I do think this is going to get this, especially for the economic crunch coming, because remember, the corporations they're not going to do anything to lose a penny. They want all of it. They want it all. Right? Shout out to Mac Ting and Warren G. They want it all. So they're not leaving any money on the table. The uber wealthy are not leaving any money on the table. There's a handful of them that's saying UBI, UBI. You got the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Elon Musk, because they understand what's going on, and they're partially afraid for their own life. But the rest of the elite are full on pedal to the metal. And what that means for women is they're gonna have to feel the burn. Even more. You know what was fascinating, and shout out to Danica Marie, because it really hit me with one of her videos of months ago. Because I saw it, but I didn't really put words to it. And I didn't really when you have the light bulb moment. She was speaking about in one of her videos about how many of these women are talking crap but live at home with their parents. And I was like, well, duh. Right? Because we all seen it, but I don't know how many of us really internalized what we were seeing, because we kept on giving it a pass. Right? And when Danica Marie said that, I was like, well, that is so true. So let's think about it. And I don't know how many of you saw this video of this African sister that was talking crap about not settling, But then when you looked in the background, you saw the family portrait of her and her peoples and all this other stuff, and you could tell that ain't her house, which means she's at home in her people's house talking crap. You ain't settling, but you living at home with your peoples. And I'm not saying we don't know for sure that she's living at home with her peoples, but most likely she is. But she's talking all this crap about not settling and settle for who. And, I don't know how many of us saw that Instagram video, right? And if somebody has and you still can find it, please send me that link because I'm going to make a whole video about that. My email is in the description. Right? But it speaks to something. It speaks to these women actually living the difficulty, whether they got degrees or not. And I'm pretty sure that African sister, I'm putting money, she probably degreed up. She at least got her bachelor's degree. Might be even from a notable, reputable school. Right? And what that mean? Not a nothing. Because so many people, women in particular, black women in particular, have made yourself so insufferable that you're going to have to go this alone. You might be married for some 5, 6, 7 years and then get divorced. African sisters, Haitian sisters, they don't get divorced. Right? That's their whole big bragging thing. Oh, we don't get divorced. Yeah, y'all be in loveless, sexless ass marriages. The whole difference is Black American sisters will torpedo that marriage completely. They will file for divorce. African and Haitian and Jamaican sisters will not file for divorce. They'll tell everybody, yeah, we're married. Let me tell y'all something. They've been separated for 20 years. All my Haitian, Jamaican, Nigerian people know what I just said is God honest truth. Your parents haven't been for real. They haven't been serious for some 10, 15, 20 years. So yeah, y'all, my parents are still married. Stop it. Your dad might show up at a social event that your mom got invited to, grinning his teeth. But your parents ain't for real together and you know it. Right? I'm saying all that to say, because of the way y'all view the world, I'm talking about the women, and because y'all are insufferable, you might make 60, you might make 70, you might make 80 grand a year, but that's just you. That's you plus you having to pay back those student loans. Right? Your 80 is not teamed up with another black man in his 50, his 60, his 70, his 80, his 90, his 120. Let me say it again. Because you're insufferable. Because you're an asshole. See, Lexus Exodus tried to do a little damage control with her video about some of these white guys. Y'all don't want to be honest about how many of you sisters making 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 a year. Y'all done swirled already. It didn't work. Y'all done been in relationship, air quotes, relationship with 2 or 3 white dudes. It didn't work. Y'all don't want to be honest. You're insufferable, lady. And your market valuation of manhood, of masculinity, means that you're looking at all the other guys. Yeah, okay, let's say you come with 70 grand. Let's say you come with 70. Your market valuation of manhood means you can never take a man that makes 50 seriously, 55 seriously. All right, then cool, deal with the consequences. Like I said, I'm never going to tell you who to be with. Never going to tell you it's a woman imperative to practice hypergamy. Cool. Deal with the consequences. What's going on, Pieces Alive? What's going on, Better You? Better You says, that's facts. I know a lady that's 45 in Mobile, Alabama, that will talk cash money about black men ain't ish, but living with her parents in their house for a decade. And there you go. And there you go. But you know what they reserve the right, why they do that too? Because you as a man was supposed to save them anyway. That's your job. That's why that's their excuse to still be talking crap while living at their parents' house. Because you as a man was supposed to save them from that situation anyway. You're supposed to be protector and provider. And because not enough black men are protectors and providers, it puts black women in a position to be in their 40s living at home with their parents. Now, they don't ever talk about the other side of that. If you're a woman, then that means you're supposed to shut the hell up. How about that part? He's supposed to be protector and provider, and he's not doing his job. That's why, and when I say he, I mean black men in general, aren't doing their job. That's why you're 45 living with your parents. Well, are you doing your job and shutting the hell up? I'm just saying, if we're gonna say that he's supposed to be a traditional man and do those things, are you a traditional woman in doing those things? That's a question, ladies. Or does he have to be traditional and you don't? I'm just saying. He has to be protector, provider, and you don't have to be the support, which means shutting the hell up. And cooking, and cleaning, and giving head. I'm just saying. That's a real question. Or do you get to be a hypocrite and he has to be traditional and you get to be modern? And if that's the case, you tell me how that's supposed to work. Ladies, there's nothing wrong with it. You want to piecemeal traditionalism with modernism? Cool. How is it working? Uh-oh. How is it working, ladies? I want him to be traditional, but I get to do whatever I want to do. How is it working? Shout out to Better You in Spain, man. I like the Project Pat version way more. Don't Save Her. Project Pat version was way better than the little clip of J. Cole saying it. The music better, video was better, and the message was better from Project Pat. And I've been listening to that since I was a kid. Project Pat version should be the freaking anthem of the Black Manosphere. Or at least the anthem of the Black Manosphere when it comes to speaking about women. When it comes to speaking about brotherhood, we could choose a different song. But when it comes to speaking about the women, and I'm glad he said that. It's not just don't save her. We can talk about neoliberalism with that too. Project Pat didn't just say don't save her. The more important part is the second part of the statement. She don't want to be saved. It's not just don't save her. She don't want to be saved. That's the most important part of the statement. To all the people that talking about rap being misogynistic and sexist and da. Y'all gotta pretend like these rappers ain't know what they was talking about. When Cube told you I ain't the one, and he spoke about essentially gold diggers. And that song came out, what, in the 80s? In the early 90s? I agree with Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. Yes, these rappers may not have been articulate in their interviews, but y'all kept on pretending like they didn't know what they were talking about, like they didn't have these experiences. And yeah, he's not a rapper, but when Chris Brown says these hoes ain't loyal, what you think? You think that Chris Brown is not having married women throwing themselves at him? Women in relationships throwing themselves at him? Telling him that they're in a relationship and then still throwing themselves at him? You think he just grabbed that song out of thin air? Huh? We keep on speaking like these people aren't just coming out of nowhere. These black male entertainers, what? You wait a minute. So they're just making all of this up? So let me get this right. Chris Brown is only having sex with women and that's single. Only single women. All of these rappers telling you, right? When Biggie said, I got a story to tell, that woman was in a relationship with an NBA player. With an NBA player. Which means he's probably more fit than Biggie, and Biggie still smashed. Fat and ugly as ever. However, I'm piping NBA players' girls. What happened? I was about to go dark. I'ma do it. We don't want to talk about the whole Mayweather debacle with the dude that killed the woman and killed himself because of the rumors that Mayweather was smashing. Uh-oh. They're gonna stop acting like these married women aren't throwing themselves at these celebrity men. And like these celebrity men aren't having these experiences, celebrity black men, and they're not telling the truth. Right? But we don't want to be honest with that. And it's not even just on a celebrity level. The brother on Fox News that the lady tried to pretend after the fact, tried to lie on him after the fact, like he was only coming on to her. She was married. The chubby brother on Fox News that smashed the white woman. She was married. Y'all don't want to have this real conversation about femininity, bro. Not with the Black Manosphere, y'all don't. Because it won't take us more than 5 minutes to show women are spicing everything nice. Oh, we'll destroy that in no time. I don't know if y'all heard me. Let me say that again because my phone just showed that it right? It disconnected. But yeah, I was saying 5 minutes and the Black Manosphere could prove all of that. Women are nice. Women are spicing everything nice. Right? We could disprove that in less than 5 minutes, honestly. That doesn't mean that women are monsters and men are these great things that never do anything wrong. No, we're human beings. We are human beings. Right? And this moralizing of women, particularly black women in the black community, has led to disaster because we can't have an honest conversation about the interplay, the back and forth between black men and black women. We can't speak about, because of this moralizing of black women, we can't be honest about who's using white supremacist tools against the other and how they're using it. We can't be honest about the 80s and the 90s and all those movies and books just demonizing black men over and over and over again. Right? We can't have an honest conversation about that. And now we can't have an honest conversation about black women's neoliberal assessment of masculinity. Because somehow we've regulated that to only the most extreme divestors and swirlers and black women and luxury women. That's if we're willing to talk about it at all. And then we end up here. right? That sex rate is going down, that marriage rate is going down, that childbirth rate is going down. Well, and everybody's chastising the men and the boys, not just the black men, too. And now Dr. T. Hassan Johnson has just bought y'all that the white boys is starting to get suspended more and more, too. But we're only focused on the disparity between black women, black girls suspension compared to their white female counterparts, the white girls suspension rate. Meanwhile, the white dude's suspension rate and the black guy's suspension rate is looking a little bit more similar because the white boys are getting suspended and expelled more. Because this entire system has rejiggered itself to essentially work for white girls, which means it works somewhat for black girls. And it works for Asian girls and Latina girls who comport themselves like white girls. And so if you're a boy, white, black, Latino, it doesn't work for you. If the numbers look like the way as bad as they do now, what is it going to look like in a decade or two? We already got a 60-40 split college enrollment, women to men. And the next decade is going to be 66-33. And that's not even counting graduation from college and university. Remember, women are more likely to graduate than men are. So we're going to, I keep on bringing this up, we're going to look like 70-30. Right? Shout out to you, Better You. I know, brother, you got your degree. I know you've been through some crap. I'm of the, and I'm gonna end in a minute. I know Roger's about to start his show. This is what I'm saying. Women, this is what you wanted, now eat it. You wanted this, now eat it. It's gonna be super interesting to see all of these college-educated women chasing after the handful of brothers and handful of men that also have a degree and that look good enough for them and are tall enough for them and make enough money for them and are charismatic for them. Ugh. I'm in a relationship now, but even if I was single, I make enough to pay for it, if you know what I mean. So I'm gonna be all right. Right? So it's going to be interesting to see this. I just want us to remember black women's neoliberal assessment and other women's neoliberal assessment of masculinity is how we get here. And I'll truly pause right there, everyone. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat on your way out. Right? Thank you button. We're going to end it right here. I'll pause right here. Thank you for being here with me, you guys, for this conversation. I gave the definitions for different things. I gave quotes in the beginning of the stream if y'all want to go back later on to listen to it. I will be leaving links for some of the videos I went over so y'all can hear the quotes yourselves. And we'll truly pause right here. Have a good rest of you guys' day, and I will see y'all later. All right, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. I'll pause right here. Peace, love, and chicken grease.